sleep.
War in Gaza enters 700th day. U.S. authority detain about 300 Koreans in raid on Hyundai plant. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Olivia Nicholas and you're watching World Today. Gaza's health authorities on Saturday said the Palestinian death toll in Gaza has risen to 64,368 with over 160,000 others injured. In the past 24 hours, hospitals across the region had received 68 bodies and 362 injured Palestinians. On the same day, the Gaza Media Office said in a statement that the Israeli military operations in Gaza have now stretched into the 700th day, leaving catastrophic humanitarian consequences. According to the statement, the conflict has left more than 70,000 people in the region either dead or missing, including over 20,000 children and 12,500 women. The office also noted that 90% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed, with economic losses exceeding $68 billion. Israeli military actions have also ruined hospitals, mosques and schools, and its complete blockade has left over 2.4 million people in a humanitarian crisis, over 1 million of whom are children on the verge of hunger. Palestine strongly condemned Israeli actions and accused its supporting countries like the United States of being responsible. It also urged Arab and Islamic countries as well as the international community to take immediate actions to stop Israeli military actions, lift the blockade, safeguard displaced residents to return home, and hold Israeli leaders legally accountable. As the Palestine-Israel conflict reaches its 700th day, Israel continues mounting pressure on the Palestinians to make them leave the territory. Israel's military has taken the first steps of a planned operation to take over Gaza City, but the Palestinians remain resilient against the aggression. Israeli soldiers were seen maneuvering army vehicles near the Gaza border as the Israeli military said that its forces have returned to combat in the Jabalia area in recent days to dismantle militant tunnels and strengthen control of the area. The military issued evacuation warnings to civilians in certain areas of the city, saying it was about to attack as soldiers advanced deeper into the enclave's largest urban area. The military later bombed a high-rise Gaza City tower that it was said was being used by Hamas without providing evidence. It said civilians were warned in advance, but Gazans said they were not given enough time to evacuate. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres had already called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza after Israel announced the beginning of the operation to take over Gaza City. He said the decision by the Israeli authorities to expand illegal settlement construction, which would divide the West Bank, must be reversed, and all settlement construction is a violation of international law. British police arrested around 150 people on Saturday for demonstrating in support of Palestine Action, a pro-Palestinian group banned by the government as a terrorist organization. The group accuses Britain's government of complicity in Israeli war crimes against the people of Gaza. Police have arrested hundreds of Palestine Action supporters in recent weeks under anti-terrorism legislation, including over 500 in just one day last month, many of them over the age of 60. On Saturday, hundreds of demonstrators gathered near Parliament in central London to protest against the ban. London's Metropolitan Police said officers had begun arresting those expressing support for Palestine Action. Palestine Action's ban or proscription puts the group alongside Daesh and ISIS and makes it a crime to support or belong to the organization, punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Human rights groups have criticized Britain's decision to ban the group as disproportionate and says it limits the freedom of expression of peaceful protesters. Hundreds of workers at the Hyundai motor car battery facility under construction in Georgia were detained in a raid by U.S. authorities on Thursday, stopping work on a plant that is one of the Korean automaker's major investments in the U.S. About 475 workers, most of whom were South Korean nationals, were arrested. According to U.S. immigration officials, it was the largest single-site enforcement operation in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's DHS history. Dubbed as Operation Low Voltage, video on the operation was released on Saturday by the United States Customs and Immigration Enforcement, ICE. Trump's administration has been escalating a crackdown on immigrants, disrupting businesses around the country, even as the White House has encouraged more inflows from foreign investors. The arrest could exacerbate tensions between Washington and Seoul, a key ally and investor in the U.S. Homeland Security officials said the workers arrested at the Elabel, Georgia site were barred from working in the U.S. after crossing the border illegally or overstaying visas. A Hyundai Motor spokesperson said none of the people detained were employed directly by the automaker. A spokesperson at Hyundai Battery joint venture partner said in a statement it was cooperating and had paused construction work. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has ordered an all-out effort to respond to the arrest of hundreds of the nation's citizens in a U.S. immigration raid on a Hyundai motor car battery factory. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun said on Saturday the government has set up a team to respond to Thursday's arrest of over 300 Koreans at the facility.
조지아주에 소재한 우리 기업의 배터리 공장 건설 현장을 단속했으며 그 결과 475명이 구금되었는데 이 중 300명이 넘는 우리 국민이 포함된 것으로 파악되고 있습니다. 매우 우려가 큽니다. 우리 국민들이 이렇게 체포된 데 막중한 책임감을 느낍니다. 대통령께서는 미국의 법 집행 과정에서 우리 국민의 권익과 대미 투자 기업의 경제 활동이 부당하게 침해되어서는 안 된다는 점을 강조하셨습니다. 또한 주 미국 대사관과 주 아틀란타 총영사관을 중심으로 이번 사안의 신속한 해결을 위해 총력 대응을 하도록 직접 지시하셨습니다.
Cho added that he may go to Washington to meet with officials if needed.
미국의 법 집행 과정에
Russia claimed on Friday that its forces had attacked multiple Ukrainian targets, while Ukraine on Saturday reported that it hit a large amount of Russian military equipment. The Russian Defense Ministry said that its forces had taken control of 4 settlements in the special military operation zone over the past week. They added that the Russian force had targeted Ukrainian military industrial enterprises and airfields with high-precision weapons. Meanwhile, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on Saturday that Ukrainian troops had engaged in a total of 184 combat clashes with Russian forces over the past 24 hours. Ukrainian forces also attacked concentrations of Russian weapons and military equipment as well as radar stations. Amid the ongoing conflict, diplomatic and security discussions are intensifying. French President Emmanuel Macron announced on Thursday that 26 countries, mostly European, have formally pledged to deploy troops as part of a future Russian-Ukrainian ceasefire, though not directly on the front lines. On Friday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said that Kyiv is actively discussing the possible deployment of thousands of foreign troops with its partners. On the same day, Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that any foreign troops in Ukraine would be considered legitimate targets for the Russian army. Remains of Poles killed by Ukrainian nationalist insurgents during World War II were buried in western Ukraine on Saturday as officials from both countries looked on, a move to ease a rare strain in relations between the two close allies. Poland was allowed to exhume the remains in the former Polish village of Puzniki in present-day Ukraine earlier this year after long-standing demands from Warsaw over the issue, which has caused friction between the neighboring countries. Large swaths of modern-day western Ukraine were under Polish control at the time. The Ukrainian Insurgent Army UPA, which fought against both Nazi German forces and the Soviet Red Army, is widely held responsible for the killings as part of efforts to limit Polish influence over the area. The so-called Volhynia massacres have complicated relations, even as Poland has strongly backed Ukraine against Russia's 2022 invasion of its smaller neighbor by supplying weapons and taking in almost 1 million refugees. Ukraine has rejected Poland's description of the killings as genocide, saying thousands of Ukrainians were also killed in events that were part of a wider conflict between the two nations. Norwegians head to the polls on Sunday and Monday to elect a new parliament in what is a close race between a left-wing bloc led by the incumbent Labour Party and a right-wing bloc dominated by the Anti-Immigration Progress Party and the Conservatives. Key issues in the election campaign have included the cost of living, taxation and public services, and the outcome could have an impact on energy and power supplies to Europe and the management of Norway's $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund. However, geopolitics has also loomed unusually large with the voters this time around. Analysts said this could benefit Labour and its leader, Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store, a former foreign minister who presents himself as a safe pair of hands. The return to power of US President Donald Trump and Russia's war in Ukraine have been particularly sources of anxiety in Norway. Given how tight the electoral race is, the final outcome could well hinge on the performance of the five smaller parties, the Greens, the Socialist Left and the Communist on the left, and the Liberals and Christian Democrats on the right. Following a devastating earthquake in Afghanistan that claimed over 2,000 lives and caused widespread destruction, China is preparing to send its first batch of emergency humanitarian aid to Kabul as part of about $7 million in relief package. Preparations have been underway at Zhengzhou International Airport in central China's Henan province since Saturday morning, with teams packing and loading supplies, including tents and blankets for those affected. Normally handled in warehouses, this urgent mission moved all packing directly to the cargo terminal. The flight is scheduled to take off Sunday morning at around 4 Beijing time and is expected to reach Kabul at about 9 local time. A 6-magnitude earthquake struck Afghanistan on the 31st of August, with the epicenter located 27 kilometers northeast of Jalalabad, the capital of Nangarhar province. The Afghan Red Crescent Society confirmed on Thursday that the earthquake has caused 2,205 fatalities and 3,640 injuries. China's J-16 fighter jet, a versatile powerhouse, delivers unmatched combat strength with its robust propulsion system and ability to carry a vast array of weapons. J-16 fighters appeared in the Early Warning Command Aircraft Formation, Special Mission Aircraft Formation and the Aerial Refueling Aircraft Formation. The fighter jet made waves at the Grand Military Parade on Wednesday, marking the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. As the mainstay fighter of the Chinese People's Liberation Army (PLA) Air Force, the J-16 series aircraft is truly in its prime. Due to its strong weapon-carrying capacity, the J-16 fighter is also dubbed as the bomb truck. To enhance the J-16's overall combat performance, researchers implemented numerous innovations during the design and development process.
Kehangatan Perlumbaan Petronas Malaysia Cup 3 2025 kini memasuki pusingan ke-7. Kali ini kembali menggegar Lita Lumba, Tangkak Johor. Daruman jentera lumba terus menggegar Lita. Adrenalin terus membara bagi mencipta kejuaraan. Ahad 7 September 2 petang di TV2 dan di saluran sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara penstreaman langsung di RTM Click.
Kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, the national under-23 squad revived their hopes of advancing in the 2026 U23 Asian Cup qualifiers campaign after thrashing Mongolia 7-0 in a Group F match in Pathum Thani, Thailand last night. The win placed Malaysia third in Group F behind leaders Lebanon and Thailand, although all three teams currently have 3 points. In the match held at Thammasat Stadium, Malaysia wasted no time in opening the scoring through Muhammad Alif Izwan in the 13th minute before Hamad Asya Hadi doubled the lead just 2 minutes later. Fergus Tierney then widened the gap with a brilliant hat-trick in the 36th, 46th and 48th minutes. Muhammad Alif added his second goal in the 56th minute, followed by Ziad El Bashir in the 68th, sealing a convincing victory for Harim Mahmuda. The national squad will next focus on their final group match against the War Elephants youth team next Tuesday. Only the 11th group winners and the 4 best runners-up will qualify for the finals in Saudi Arabia next January. Moving on to 2026 World Cup qualifier campaign, Cristiano netted a brace to help Portugal put down Armenia 5-0 in the F Group action. The Nations League champions had little trouble neutralising Armenia's limited attacking threat, sealing a perfect start in Group F. It took 10 minutes before Portugal went ahead through João Cancelo, then Ronaldo doubled the lead after 21 minutes for his 139th international goal. The rout continued as Cancelo added a third for Portugal, finishing from Felix's cutback after 32 minutes. A minute after the restart, Ronaldo unleashed a thunderous volley from distance that rocketed into the net. With the 4th goal confirming Portugal's dominance, the visitors began to play with greater freedom as they looked for inventive ways to carve out further chances. Just past the hour, Felix combined fortune with finesse with a clever backheel to give Portugal their 5th. In tennis, Belarusian Aryna Sabalenka successfully defended her title, dispatching American 8th seed Amanda Anisimova 6-3, 7-6 in the US Open Women's Final on Saturday. With the win, top seed Sabalenka takes her Grand Slam tally to 4. The battle between two of tennis' hardest hitting, biggest serving women boiled down to unforced errors as Sabalenka kept them to 15 compared to 29 after the... Moving on to MotoGP, Marc Marquez continued his winning streak with the Catalunya MotoGP sprint victory on Saturday after his brother Alex Marquez crashed out in the lead. Polysitter Alex was comfortably ahead on his Gresini Ducati but came to grief with 4 laps to go, allowing his older sibling to record a 14th triumph in 15 sprint races this season. MotoGP Championship leader Marc had looked destined for his first defeat in 8 rounds as Alex cruised towards what would have been a fairy tale home victory for the Spaniard. But drama struck at turn 10 when the younger Marquez brother lost his balance and slid off, leaving Marc to inherit the win in bittersweet fashion, his 14th sprint victory in 15 rounds. Yamaha's Fabio Quartararo finished second, while VR46 Racing's Fabio Di Gianantonio was third, but the day belonged to Marc, who has admitted in the past that despite being on home turf, the circuit is not among his favourites. Marc Marquez's victory helped ensure Ducati won the 2025 Constructors' World Championship title. French driver Pierre Gasly has signed a contract extension with Alpine until the end of 2028 season, as announced by the Renault Formula One team at the Italian Grand Prix on Saturday. Alpine are last in the constructors' standings after 15 of 24 rounds, and Gasly has scored all of their pointy points so far, with the highest placing of 6th in Britain. A race winner with victory at the 2020 Italian Grand Prix with Red Bull-owned Alpha Tauri, the former F2 champion, joined Alpine in 2023. Gasly said the support of team leader Flavio Briatore and the commitment of newly appointed Renault CEO Francois Provost, as well as the factory staff, had made it a natural decision. Briatore, who led the team to titles when they raced as Benetton in the 1990s and then Renault in the early 2000s, referred to Gasly as the lead driver. Gasly has had two teammates this season, with Australian Jack Doohan replaced by Argentine Franco Colapinto after 6 races. There is lingering uncertainty over who will partner the Frenchman next season. Formula One is entering a new engine era in 2026 with considerable rules upheaval, but Berita said Alpine were well prepared. Alpine will switch to Mercedes engines next year, the same as used by the Works team, reigning champions McLaren and Williams. And in cycling, Marc Soler powered to an impressive solo victory in the Vuelta a España Stage 14 on Saturday as Jonas Vingegaard extended his general classification led by 2 seconds. Vingegaard beat Vuelta rival Joao Almeida in a sprint finish to claim second, with the Portuguese third. He now trails the Dane in the overall standings by 48 seconds. Soler left his sole chaser Johannes Stott Mittet behind on the final 16.9-kilometre climb to La Farapona in the 139.5-kilometre mountainous ride from Alviles, opening a gap of more than a minute at the front. Vingegaard sprinted beyond the Portuguese to claim the 6 bonus seconds, extending his lead at the top of the general classification by 2 seconds, answering Almeida's statement on Friday as he triumphed on the Angliru climb. Briton Tom Pidcock lost 10 seconds but keeps third on the general classification podium, 32 seconds ahead of Australian Hindley. The race continues on Sunday in Galicia, with the medium mountains stage 15 stretching 168 kilometres from a Vega to Montfort de Lemos. Colourful stories await you in our offbeat segment. Stay tuned. Darth Vader's lightsaber, used to chop off Luke Skywalker's hand in Star Wars classic The Empire Strikes Back, went on display in London on Wednesday ahead of its US sale next month. The prop has been described as the holy grail for Star Wars fans, with millions prepared to end up like Skywalker and give their right arm to own the iconic weapon. Reflecting that passion, it is projected to fetch up to $3 million when it goes on sale in Los Angeles next month. Darth Vader wielded the weapon during legendary fight scenes in both The Empire Strikes Back in 1980 and Return of the Jedi in 1983. David Prowse, the actor behind Vader's mask, and stuntman Bob Anderson actually used 2 of the devices. One without a blade was clipped to the villain's belt, while the other, which had a wooden blade attached, was used for the fight scenes. Experts verify the prop's authenticity by matching its dents and scratches to those seen on film. While now likely worth millions, the item's actually an old camera flash attachment with spare parts, such as the bubbles from behind a calculator pad stuck on. Japan heralds on Saturday the coming of age of Prince Hisahito with an elaborate ceremony at the Imperial Palace, where a succession crisis is brewing. The nephew of Emperor Naruhito and second in line to become emperor after his father, the 19-year-old received a black silk and lacquer crown at the ceremony, which marks the beginning of his royal adult life. Hisahito was then seen boarding a carriage to attend other ceremonial events after changing into a dark-colored costume traditionally worn by adult royals. Although the emperor has a daughter, Princess Aiko, the 23-year-old has been sidelined by the royal family's male-only succession rules. Even though tradition dictates only a man can carry on the imperial line, which goes back 2,600 years according to legend, opinion polls have shown high public support for a woman taking the throne. The 33-year-old felt there could be room for more flexibility in the succession roles. Japan has debated the royal succession for decades, with a key government panel in 2005 recommending that it pass to the oldest child regardless of their sex. Falling water levels at Iraq's Mosul Dam have exposed a 2,300-year-old cemetery dating back to the Hellenistic period, officials said, with archaeologists so far unearthing 40 ceramic tombs. The site in the village of Kanke on the outskirts of Duhok was submerged when the Mosul Dam was built, but has re-emerged after years of drought. Dr. Bekas Birfkani, Director of Antiquities and Heritage in Duhok, said the drop in water levels prompted his team to begin surveying sites submerged during the dam's construction. Officials say the burials date to the Seleucid era. Around 300 BC, adult tombs were found in one section of the site, with children's graves in another. Over the past years, Iraq managed to record around 164 archaeological sites that were located along the edges of the Mosul Dam. Authorities plan to move the tombs to Duhok Museum for conservation and study. Saka Sadullah, Duhok's Director of Tourism, said the finds could boost the region's cultural profile. And that wraps up our bulletin this afternoon. In our top story, war in Gaza enters 700th day with no end in sight yet. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and on Berita RTM for more news. You can also stream us on RTM Click's website and mobile app. Till then, I'm Olivia Nicholas, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat Disantuni. Goodbye for now. Have a fantastic day.